Hey all, here OS Reviews, taking a hands-on look at another unconventional gadget. This is going to be the Shelfy. Claims to be a high-tech fridge purifier that will make the food last longer for things like vegetables and fruits, killing bacteria, also removing odors, and also tracking the number of times that you are opening up your fridge door by using an optional companion app that you can download on your phone for iOS or Android. Interestingly, this is also a gadget that's made in Italy, and as far as the claims are concerned, they state that on average, a US household wastes over $2,000 per year on food, which is thrown out because they've gone bad in the fridge, and this will make food items last up to 2 times longer. And the device itself will last upwards of 3 weeks in the eco mode before you have to recharge it again using USB Type-C. So it's a pretty interesting idea. It's supposed to be stored in just the door of the fridge here on the side if you're using it for the sensor that can track number of door openings. So keep that in mind. If you're using this in a cooler that doesn't have really a shelf design on the door, then that particular metric may not be collected. But you can still obviously use it for the bacteria as well as odor reduction. They also claim that it should be pretty quick to act, removing again 99% bacteria in less than 10 minutes after it starts to circulate. And also, interestingly, it claims that no filters have to be replaced on this particular model. And that is because supposedly the filter itself is washable, which is actually very good. It's just a one-time upfront cost, and then you don't have to purchase any replacements. That being said, the upfront cost is a little bit high. This one here actually retailing for around $150. So whether it's worthwhile or not really depends on, I think, the amount of fresh food that you have in your fridge. Another option would be preserving more of those items using the freezer side instead. But again, if you are commonly cooking with, again, fresh produce, you don't want them to go to waste, and your fridge is commonly stocked with those types of ingredients, then this might be something worth considering, especially here in the summer season, where because of the heat in many places around the world, food, even in fridges, can spoil faster as well. And interestingly, it touts up to 4 weeks of battery on the packaging, although it's stated 3 weeks on the Amazon ad there, so that's probably a more conservative estimate. The inside box here is also made of cardboard, so it should be eco-friendly and can be recycled. Got the same before and after as a demonstration for, again, fruits like tomatoes, as well as strawberries, and inside here we can then have access to the actual air purifier, or the Shelfy, which we'll take a closer look at in a moment, as well as just a quick user guide in addition to a USB Type-C standard charging cable. It takes about 2 hours to fully charge up. And a quick look at the design and construction. It's built out of this polycarbonate plastic with simply a power key here on the front and some ventilation there for the fan to be circulating the air and then pass it through. Although there's no technical documentation available from that product page, I suspect it's using something like a UVC light maybe to, again, circulate the air as well as eliminate any bacteria that's floating around, in addition to, again, having that filter that can further absorb some of the odors and smells. So it's probably using a combination of those technologies, as well as maybe a motion sensor to track if you are opening up the fridge door or not. Now we can just pull on this section actually to pop it off, and we have access now to the, again, aforementioned filter that you can then wash and rinse off. Interestingly, it's actually not a really soft sponge, but rather it's kind of a hard texture. Popping this square basically out of this compartment when you are rinsing it in the water. And otherwise, we have the circulating fan and the aforementioned UVC lights, which are actually quite a high concentration on this model. These lights will subsequently kill any bacteria floating around in the air and help preserve things for a little bit longer. And on the other side is also the USB Type-C port for charging. Otherwise, tapping on here to wake it up, there's also going to be a simple LED status light. It does produce, of course, a little bit of sound, but I wouldn't say it's too bad, considering it is just mostly there in the fridge and it's not overly loud. When on, you can tell that the light also seeps out a little bit from the rear as well when the air further passes through the sponge-like filter or texture. Alright, so over here we can tap on Add a New Device, and we're going to allow it to turn on location services as well as Bluetooth while we're using the app. Then tap on Shelfy. Then to connect a device, double tap on the Shelfy button and the lights should flash blue, so let's give that a shot. And indeed, now we have the flashing blue light to indicate Bluetooth is enabled. Interestingly, it tells us to also then connect to a Wi-Fi network, so it does have a Wi-Fi chip inside that can then transfer the data wirelessly over to the app. We can even name this as well, so that we can differentiate it from other Shelfies or products from them if you purchase multiple sets. It also tells us to select our fridge type, so if you have a double door versus a single door side by side or a multi-door setup, and afterwards it will begin a calibration process. So you should put it into the fridge and let the sensors detect its environment, and it will actually take about an hour, it looks like, before the data here will then refresh on the app. And while that's in progress, some other metrics that we can take a look at include temperature. So there is also a thermometer built into the device. It kind of transforms a regular fridge into a smart fridge in a way, giving you access to some of these numbers when you are further away from the device. And you can also take a look at the filters recommended to be washed every month or so, as well as the battery percentage left in the Shelfy itself. You can also tap on the green icon here to toggle into a few different modes. For example, crisper, eco, and performance mode. So this will put the fan speed on maximum, so the air will be circulating faster. The UV lights might be a little bit brighter as well. It will preserve the food the longest but also consume more power, versus eco will reduce the fan speed to the minimum setting as well as the intensity of the UVC lights, but might last a little bit longer, versus crisper is in the middle. You can also press on the button on the Shelfy itself to toggle through those three settings manually. By the way, it's not going to be turned on 24/7, so similar to the compressor on a fridge, it will go through an entire circulation that takes roughly 1 hour, and then afterwards it might be silent for a little bit before it turns on again. And by the way, the LED ring along the power key here can also serve as other notification controls. For example, when it's orange, it means the battery is around 10 to 20%. It will turn red if the battery is less than 10%. And a quick look at some of the other tabs in the app. We can also click on the chart button over here to take a look at how the metrics here will change over time. So it will track trends similar to on a smartwatch over different weeks or even months. The next tab over is also kind of this interesting recommendation tab that tells you should ideally place what types of foods, organizing it in your fridge to help, again, preserve maybe the health of it. So you can choose between things like fruits and vegetables versus drinks versus meat and fish. It tells you to, again, stack in these different positions for them to actually last a little bit longer. Interestingly, it tells us that dairy products should be placed here towards the top of the fridge versus cured meats there, and then looking at more raw food as well as fruits and vegetables there at the bottom. Finally, drinks and butter should be placed here at the side here of the fridge. Scrolling further down, there's also different types of foods, including various vegetables, basil, bananas, apples that we can actually tap on, and this tells us a little bit more info about how long it usually lasts, as well as some storage tips, again, optimal placement in the fridge for it to last a little bit longer. To find those recommendations and tips using this section of the app. Final tap also allows us to check to see if there's any firmware updates available, and last but not least, you are able to connect to additional Shelfy devices as well within the same app, again, if you purchase multiple sets. Alright, so continuing with our demo, after calibration, you can tell that right now, oh no, the fridge status is very poor, because again, it says that the intended temperature range is actually a little too high since it is very hot currently in the summertime. What's also clever is for the filter washing, you can set up automatic alerts using the app as well. So it tells you after 30 days, it will pop up as a notification telling you to, again, rinse off the filter inside. And again, all of this data will be then synced with your app automatically. You can take a look at those fluctuations over time, the number of openings, the time, in fact, that the fridge was open for can also be tracked, again, using those motion sensors. So overall, I would say the app is actually quite simple to use. It's fairly quick to connect and sync the data over. So not bad for a first generation attempt. As far as accuracy of the sensors are concerned, I tried opening it up and closing it a little earlier, and it actually seemed to be a fairly good match with the data that I'm seeing in front of us here. When it comes to the temperature, actually a pretty close match as well with what the numbers on the fridge are showing. Although one metric that is missing would be kind of a purification effectiveness, which will tell you data points like the number of particles in the air per second or per minute, but overall gives you a rough idea of what's happening. So that's more or less it as far as a quick hands-on look at Shelfy, kind of a smart air purifier gadget for your fridge. I do think the concept is quite clever, and although it's technically using pretty off-the-shelf components like UVC lights, which are great for sterilization, again killing all bacteria, including COVID as well, in addition to eliminating odors using that sponge, but the combination of those features into one unit that, again, is relatively slim and attractive looking, easy to manage, I think is the part that's a little bit interesting here. And yes, from an effectiveness point of view, UVC does indeed kill all bacteria as well as viruses floating around. So for my usage thus far, I can indeed confirm that the odor has been mostly eliminated when opening up the door. It smells a lot more neutral, and fruits and veggies were able to last 2 or 3 days longer compared to without the product inside, eliminating any of the airborne bacteria. But all in all, kind of an interesting idea. Again, if you are consuming a lot of fresh fruits and veggies, this at least offers something a little bit different. You can check out more details if you are interested in the links down below. Again, just our hands-on first look really at the Shelfy Smart Fridge Purifier.